an intro for this one. Let's look at Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451 was written by Ray Bradbury and published in 1953. The story itself, while science fiction, really does show what a lot of people were thinking about back then. I mean, hey, World War II had just ended and the Cold War was going on. This is another book that has also been challenged and banned numerous times. Now, I like Ray Bradbury's works. They fascinate me immensely. In fact, if you recall a couple years ago, I read his short story, A Sound of Thunder. I'll put a link to that video in the end card. And this coming Halloween, I plan to read one of the stories from his book, The Martian Chronicles, which is still one of my favorite pieces of science fiction. Alright, as is tradition when we look at science fiction, let's look at the world. The world takes place in the distant future. The story itself takes place in an unnamed city during an unnamed year. We know for a fact that it's later than 2022 since there was a reference to an atomic war that took place during that time. Houses are now completely fireproof, so there's no need for the average fireman. Instead, firemen have a new purpose, and that purpose is to start fires. Why start these fires? Because some people are committing the worst crimes against the state imaginable. Keeping books! Yeah, books have been censored and abridged and changed around so much to fit the modern audience and their rapidly short attention spans that they eventually became obsolete to the point where all literature and books are banned. Now, the entertainment is in little parlors where you interact with the shows that are put on the walls. But see, this entertainment comes at a cost. Human interaction. Due to how the shows are structured and the lack of books, the people don't really feel the need to question or think critically about the world around them. They're not really exposed to new ideas or concepts. Plus, war is happening constantly all around them, to the point where they don't care. It's gotten to a point where death is treated like a casual occurrence. It's not that big a deal to the people of this world, and that's terrifying! Now, how are these people with books found? By the Hound, which is a mechanical, 8-legged robotic dog that stays in the firehouse. The Hound has an enhanced tracking sense and is able to find anyone and anything very quickly. Nothing has escaped the Hound as far as the state knows. Why be so mad at books? They were forbidden because they caused people to have confusing and depressing thoughts. This complicated people's lives, and the government didn't feel their existence was necessary anymore. The story begins with Guy Montag, a fireman, meeting his new neighbor Clarice McClellan. Clarice is a teenager who has a lot of thoughts about nature and the little things in life. Like love. She loves all things and everyone. Montag's interactions with her allow him to start to question his own life and what really makes him happy. Well, Montag gets home that night and finds out that his wife Mildred has overdosed on sleeping pills. He immediately calls the emergency line, and Mildred is saved by 2 uncaring EMTs. Now, after that whole experience, Montag can't stop thinking about his conversations with Clarice and the near death of his wife. Montag then starts meeting up with Clarice on his way home from work, and they talk about the little things. Clarice mentions that her fascination with the little things in life has made her insane. She talks about how her family just has normal conversations at home, unlike everyone else who spends their days in the parlor or listening to the shows in their earpieces. Clarice actually has to go to therapy since it's required by the state. Well, one day Clarice goes missing. Montag had really been looking forward to speaking with Clarice since he hasn't been getting much social interaction from Mildred. Anyways, later that night, Montag is called to go set a fire to an old woman's house. She had a whole bunch of books. Montag actually steals a book without letting any of his coworkers know. The old woman actually burns herself along with her books. Montag is shaken from the experience and goes home to hide the book. He asks Mildred if she's heard anything about Clarice, and she says that Clarice was hit by a car and killed 4 days ago. Clarice's family has also moved away. Montag doesn't feel well the next morning, and considers quitting as a fireman, but Mildred would prefer he didn't since that would mean no more parlor walls. Captain Beatty, Montag's captain, comes by to see if Montag is doing okay. Right here, Beatty recounts the whole history of how the firemen came to be and why they're doing what they're doing now. I'm not going to recount exactly what he said here since I already did that in the world description. Now, Montag asks a not-so-hypothetical question about if a fireman had picked up a book. Beatty is kinda suspicious at this point and tells him that if the fireman doesn't burn the book within 24 hours, the fireman will do it for him. Then Beatty leaves. Montag ends up confessing to Mildred that he had been taking books for months now and hiding them in the air duct. He tells her that they are going to read these books to see if they have any value, and if they don't, the books will be incinerated. Now, Mildred is not on board with this idea, but Montag reminds her of everything that's happened to her and what's going on in the world around them. He's hoping to find a message in these books that could save society. Mildred still isn't too on board with this. Then, and she gets a call from a friend and they plan to watch the parlor walls later, so shows how much she cares. Montag can't get through to Mildred, so he goes to one other person who can possibly help him. You see, a while back, Montag met a man named Faber, who was an English professor before the books were banned. Montag goes over to Faber's house with a copy of the Bible, which is the book he stole from the old woman's house. Montag forces Faber to help him, and Faber gives Montag a little earpiece where he can talk to Montag while he's out and about. When Montag gets home, Mildred and her friends are already hanging out watching the parlor walls. Montag is frustrated with what they're doing and turns off the parlor to try to get them to have a meaningful conversation, but they don't care. Montag pulls out a book of poetry. Everyone is confused, and Mildred plays it off as part of the fireman job, saying they can take home one book to laugh at the past and how ridiculous it was. But reading from the book of poetry, specifically the poem Dover Beach, this causes everyone in the room to experience feelings unknown to them. Faber tells Montag to burn the book to show them that he's still loyal to the state, and he does so. Mildred's friends leave, and Mildred tries to kill herself again, but doesn't succeed. Montag now knows that keeping the books where they are now is a bad idea, and hides them outside in his yard. Well, all except one. He brings that one to Beatty, since he knows that Beatty suspects him. It seems that Beatty used to read a lot of books back in the day, but no time for talking. The alarm sounds to call the firemen to their next target. Montag's house. Mildred and her friends reported Montag, and Mildred leaves. Beatty tells Montag that he has to be the one to burn his house down with the flamethrower. So Montag does just that, but also kills Beatty, knocks out his coworkers, and destroys the Hound. But not before the Hound can inject his leg with anesthetic. Montag manages to escape, but now the government is after him. Montag makes it to Faber's house, where he's told that there are camps outside the city where book lovers live. Faber is intending to leave early the next morning for St. Louis, where they can meet up with a retired printer. Montag and Faber do their best to wipe out Montag's scent to throw off the new Hound, and Montag escapes into the woods toward a river. Montag wades in the river downstream and comes across some train tracks, which he follows to a nearby camp, where there are people. They are led by a man named Granger. Granger and the other people here know who Montag is, since they have a portable TV with them. Granger points out that since the state doesn't want to be seen as wrong, they have the Hound track down and kill an innocent man that they say is actually Montag. Now, everyone here in the camp has sections of books memorized. That way they can pass on what they know to the next generation by the time society collapses. The group also has a special way of unlocking photographic memory. Montag says that he'll contribute since he has part of the Book of Ecclesiastes memorized. Okay, the imminent war has now made it to the city. Bombers come in with nukes and wipe out the whole city. Now, by this point, Faber would have already left, but Mildred and the rest of the people in the city are killed. Montag and the group survive the shockwave. Once everything is settled, Granger brings up the story of the Phoenix and how mankind can remember their mistakes and try not to repeat them. The group then goes back into the city in hopes of rebuilding society. I have a lot to cover in this analysis. First, let's start with Clarice. Clarice is seen as insane for enjoying the little things in life. This world has become so apathetic that they refuse to appreciate the little things that life gives them. She is there to remind the reader to appreciate the little things in life. Now, let's talk about the people of this world for a minute. They are, like I said, they are so apathetic and uncaring that even EMTs don't seem to care about their job. When they save Mildred's life, they pop in, complain that another person is overdosed, do their job, and make their way to the next one. They're so casual about the fact that someone literally almost died. Even Mildred, who just got her life saved, doesn't understand how she almost died. Plus, when Montag is considering leaving his job as a fireman, her big concern isn't about his mental health, it's about the possibility of losing her house and her parlor shows. The best scene I can think of that drives this apathetic behavior home is when Mildred's friends are over. I'm not going to mention what they talked about here because it was awful and disturbing how casual they made it sound. In short, it shows that they really do not care about other human beings. They only care about the parlor shows and all other noise that the media puts in their ears. Now let's talk about Montag himself for a minute. I feel like this book does a really good job of showing Montag slowly regaining those feelings that seem to have been lost for years. He realizes what he's doing is what's wrong with society and he wants to fix it. He also realizes how serious death is. It's a slow process for sure, but it all builds up to the end when he finally finds a reason why he wants to keep going. Captain Beatty is another interesting character. It's revealed that he did enjoy books at one point, but he believes that all they are just philosophers arguing with each other and pointless stories that don't seem to have any meaning. They're fake people. Why should they matter? But then we learn through Montag after he kills Beatty that it's possible Beatty was intentionally goading Montag into killing him. It's possible that Beatty wanted to die and couldn't live with what he had done. Who knows? Alright, the group of drifters led by Granger are an interesting bunch. I like how they have all this literature memorized. If you remember some of my reviews on older works, most stories were told orally many years ago. I like how the writing implies that in order to start over society, they have to start over by reciting literature orally instead of writing it down. It's really fascinating to me. It further drives home the phoenix analogy where everything burns down, but it can be reborn from the ashes. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. While the vibe of it certainly reflects the time it was written, there is some stuff that I think could apply to today. I honestly believe that everyone should read this at least once or twice in their lifetime. It's also a short book, too. I'd recommend this book for ages 17 and up because this particular writing style is a little weird to catch on to, and there's a few graphic scenes and unsettling conversations. Fahrenheit 451 has been adapted into a couple of films and has been referenced in all kinds of media. Ray Bradbury also adapted this book into a play with a slightly different outcome for Clarice, mirroring that of the 1966 film. Fahrenheit 451 was also adapted into a 1984 text-adventure game. I don't know if I'll play that for you, but it's nice to know it exists. Fahrenheit 451 also makes you think, which is what science fiction should do. It's important to ponder on this book after reading it, so you get the full experience out of it. Anyways, I hope you get to read this book at some point and learn something from it. Happy reading!